presentation for all of you who are attending. And my name is Christy Malsack. I'm the Director of Member Services here at the Chamber. Today's presentation is cybersecurity for the rest of us and how to keep from getting hacked. And we have our very own Tom Petty, which many of you probably know. But Tom is a web security expert who has worked with solopreneurs, nonprofits, Fortune 500 companies, and large government contractors on website security. And he has unhacked dozens of websites and hardened them against intrusion. So your takeaway on this today will be Tom's going to give you some simple and practical advice that you can implement and to make it much harder for the bad guys to get in. So with that, Tom can give any additional details about himself and take it away, Tom.
All right. Well, thank you. And I apologize. I've got a little bit of a frog in my throat here. So yeah, no, I appreciate it. Thank you so much. And I'll share my screen and make sure I share the right screen. So yeah, I mean, today I'm going to be talking about security, not just website security. I mean, I'll touch on that as well. But it was really the focus of this is to keep ourselves safe from the bad guys. And so that's personally our business, you know, all of that kind of stuff. And as Christy mentioned, I'm a website, specifically WordPress security expert. I work with IT security companies that manage networks and servers and computers and all the other stuff. So I kind of say that the IT security companies, they work with all the stuff that's inside the walls, and I work with the stuff that's outside the walls. But kind of what I'm going to cover today is relevant to a lot of things that we run into just in our day-to-day lives. So hopefully you can see my screen. Can everybody see my screen okay?
Yes.
Okay. And Christy, I don't know how you want to handle questions. I like to have people ask questions as I go, so I don't know if you want people to raise their hand or do something else. Since I'm in presentation mode, I won't see hands. But how do you want to handle that? You're muted.
We can't hear you. You're muted.
Still muted.
Let me ask her to unmute.
Here we are. Sorry about that. Tom, people can ask questions as we go along. That's fine. Whatever works for you.
Okay. All right. Well, I didn't know if you wanted people to raise their hand or just unmute and go for it. Whoops.
They can raise their hand. Whatever works best for them.
Okay. All right. That's fine.
Yeah.
So minimize that thing. So kind of, you know, the point here is that it really doesn't matter who you are, how little your business is. You know, you think it's like, well, I'm just a solopreneur, and it's like, you know, I'm not a target. And guess what? You are a target. And whether you're an individual, I mean, I can tell stories about my 92-year-old mother who got hacked last year. Her email system got hacked. And, you know, it happens to everybody. So they are constantly beating on the door. Many years ago, I was in charge of servers and networks and stuff at Chevron. And we had built a brand new server and plugged it into the network, and I accidentally plugged it into the network outside the firewall. And so we just assumed that the server had been compromised. Even though it had only been plugged in for 15 minutes, we just assumed it had been compromised. We disconnected it. We wiped the whole thing and started all over again, because that's how quickly the bad guys can get in. You know, they want your money, and if they can't get your money, they want your data, and your data can be traded for money. So it's important to protect both. And there's just a ton of stuff that I could go through. I mean, I could talk for hours on this stuff, but I just want to touch on a few subjects, and I don't want to get too techy and, put everybody to sleep. So I geek out on this stuff, but I know most people don't. So I'm just going to touch on some topics that are relevant. And as I said, if you've got questions as I go, please do interrupt and ask. So this is kind of today's agenda, and I'll get into that in just a second. But down at the bottom of every slide from here on out, you'll see two things. One is my phone number. Please give me a call if after this you have a question and you want to chat. And then there is a special link that I've created on my website. It's just thomaspetty.com/LVCC. And I've got resources, I've got links, I've got other things that are useful and relevant to kind of what I'm talking about. So I'm going to reference several companies that have different services today. I don't have the links in my presentation, but I have all the links on that page. So be sure and check out the thomaspetty.com/LVCC webpage. So I need a brave volunteer, and half of you statistically have a WordPress website. WordPress is the most popular web platform, and roughly 50% of all websites are built on WordPress. The Chamber's website, Terry, I know because I manage your website for the Tri-Valley nonprofit, or I'm sorry, not the nonprofit, I just blanked. Partners for Change, so WordPress is a very, very common platform. And if there is somebody who is on the call who would like to do a light security audit, I promise I won't expose anything sensitive, but we'll kind of take a little probe at your website. And so you can put your web address in the chat. And if we have time at the end, I'll take a look at one or two of them. So the seven topics that I really want to touch on today is really so that you can be more aware and start protecting yourself. And as I said, the resources page on my website has all kinds of details about stuff. So we're going to talk about terminology. We're going to talk about spam, not the meat, but email spam and email deliverability. Are your emails getting to where they should be, or are they going into the spam black hole? We're going to talk a lot about passwords, and then we're going to talk about what is better than passwords. Passwords are old school, and we need to start looking at better security than passwords because passwords can get hacked. We're going to talk about your private data, and I'm talking about you as individuals and what is out there and how you can kind of check some things. We're going to talk about protecting yourself from disasters. And as I mentioned, we'll talk a little bit about website security at the very end, specifically WordPress security. So some basic terminology. There's three terms here. Spoofing. You've probably, if those of you that are on Facebook, which is probably most of us, and you've probably seen one of your Facebook friends that goes, "Hey, don't accept a friend request from me. I've been hacked." Yeah, they haven't been hacked. They've actually been spoofed. And spoofing means copying or mimicking. So somebody has taken their profile photo, their header image, and copied it into a new account. And they're trying to get your friends to connect with them. And I don't understand why, but that's what they're trying to do. So the simple fix to prevent somebody from spoofing your Facebook account is go into the settings in Facebook and hide your friends list. If your friends list is marked as private, nobody can see who your friends list is. People aren't going to spoof your account. So that's the simple fix for that. I'm going to open the chat here real quick. Okay. And Terry, thank you. Morris, thank you for your putting your websites into the chat. Appreciate that. So hacking is, people say, "Oh, I don't accept a friend request because I've been hacked." Well, they weren't hacked, they were spoofed. Hacking is physically breaking and entering. It's like somebody, like a lockpick, that is picking your lock to your house or your office and getting in by guessing your password or other things to get into your systems, into your bank accounts, into your email accounts, or even into your Facebook account. So that is what hacking actually is. And when you combine the two of them with spoofing and hacking, it's called phishing with a PH. And phishing is mimicking a company and hoping that somebody will follow a link or go to a web page that looks like a legitimate company, and you enter your credentials, and now they have your user ID and your password because you entered it into a lookalike website. And now they can go to the real website and break into the system using your login credentials. There's another term that's called spear phishing or whaling, and that is a term where they're actually targeting C-level executives at a larger company and trying to get into systems that the higher ups in the companies would have more access to, because then they can get into more stuff than they would with somebody who doesn't have as many privileges. So you might hear the term spearfishing or whaling because they're going after the big fish. So be vigilant. So this is a screenshot of my inbox. I've grayed out all but 2 of the emails that came into my inbox. And one morning I was up. It was 6 o'clock in the morning. I was just sitting drinking my hot tea and looking at my phone, and I saw these 2 emails. One of them from Verizon says, card on your account is about to expire. You need to go fix that. And another one is from Stripe, which is my payment processor for my website. And it says payouts are paused. And so both of these subject lines are called stressor subjects, meaning they're causing stress because it's like, oh, there's an emergency. You got to deal with this. You got to take care of this right away because something bad's going to happen. And it's compelling you to log in and do something. Here's a big button to log into your account and go fix whatever it is. So it turns out that the Verizon email was a legitimate email. The Stripe email was a phishing attempt. And so, to me, it was like, oh my gosh, payouts are paused. Why are they pausing paying my credit card you know, charges for my clients. So my first thought was to open the email and there's the big button to log in. And I was like, take a breath. Let's not do this on the phone. Let's not get panicky. And I went and actually looked at it on my desktop later. And the login button actually went to a bit.ly link. It was not a link to the Stripe website. All the other links looked legit, but on my phone, I would not have been able to tell that. But on my PC, you can hover your mouse over links or buttons, and down in the lower left corner, you'll see what the actual link is. And so I didn't click on the link, but it likely went to either a lookalike Stripe page that would have asked for my login credentials, which then could have exposed my account to somebody else. It could have also had a payload. It could have had a virus. It could have had a bunch of things. So be really, really careful about emails that have these stressor subject lines. Never do stuff on your phone. Never click the links in those emails. If there truly is an issue, like your credit card is about to expire, go to verizon.com or whatever the website is and log in through the main website, and the account will tell you, hey, your credit card is about to expire. So just be really careful about not clicking on links. I mean, we all get text messages. Oh, UPS couldn't deliver your package. Click this link to, fix it. It's like, it's nonsense. So just be really, really careful about that kind of stuff. All right. So kind of moving into the business side of things, and we all have business emails, that we send out, and you have your email newsletter, you have your different systems, you may be using landing page platforms like Lead Pages or other systems that send out emails on your behalf that go out from tom@thomaspetty.com or whatever your company name is, and it sends out emails with your branded emails. And the problem is that a lot of times those emails end up in the spam folder. So the receiving email server is going, well, this doesn't look like a legitimate sender of that email account, so I'm not sure. So I'm just going to throw that into the spam folder. And so if you have trouble with that, this is something that you should talk with your IT company, or I can help you with this. In February, Google and Yahoo changed the rules that you now have to have some specific records in what's called your DNS server, your domain name server, that sets up, and these are geek acronyms, and I can't even tell you what the acronyms stand for, but there's SPF, there's DKIM or DKIM, and there's DMARC or DMARC. And these are 3 records that you need to have set up on your domain. Most of us have the SPF record already set up. That's pretty common. But fewer of us have the DKIM and the DMARC records set up. And for each system that you have that sends out emails, so if you're using Constant Contact or MailChimp or whatever systems, the Chamber uses Chamber Master that sends out emails. You have lots of different systems that are sending out emails on your own behalf, and you need to set up the DKIM and the DMARC rules for each of those systems, so that then that tells the receiving email server, if you send me an email, my receiving email server, in my case is Gmail or G Suite, it's going to go, oh, okay, those guys have DKIM and DMARC, and I know that that system is set up with the correct keys, and so this is a legitimate email, so I'm not going to put it into the spam folder, and I'm going to put it in Tom's inbox. So if you're not sure about this, there's links in that page on my website, the LVCC page, and there's an article that I wrote and published on LinkedIn a couple of months ago that talks all about the gory details about that. But talk with your IT company, your IT support company, make sure that that's set up. Or if you're not sure, give me a call and I can help you with that as well. So not seeing any questions or hearing any questions. So hopefully you guys can all hear me too. So passwords have been around since the beginning of time, computers, and really hasn't changed much in a long time. The problem is that passwords are weak. Most of us get lazy about our passwords because it's like, oh God, I've got so many passwords. I've got how many email accounts, and I've got all these systems that I have to log into. And it's frustrating for us to manage all of these passwords. A good portion of us use 13%, according to one study. It says that 13% of Americans use the same password for every single account. I've got a client that he's like, oh, I hate technology. I don't understand technology. And it just drives me crazy because all of his systems, it's his initials and his zip code. I'm like, dude, you are going to get hacked so fast, and they're going to be able to get into everything. They're going to get into your Amazon account, your email account, and everything else, and they're just going to take you down. So number one thing is don't reuse your passwords. You've heard it 1,000 times. Use mixed case, uppercase, lowercase, numbers, special characters, and make sure you use a different password for every system. Yes, I know it's a pain in the butt. 52% of us reuse the same passwords for some of their accounts, or they use variations. You've got your favorite little set of characters that you use, and then you put 2024 or 2023 or something on the end. You use some pattern to make them different, and that's really, really common. Over half of us do that kind of thing. And on that resources page on my website, I've got 2 videos of a CNN reporter, Doney, who he gets hacked live on CNN and he is not happy. So even his own password, the ethical hacker, uh, was able to break his password and hack his password on the air. So it's a pretty interesting video. According to Norton, 24 billion passwords were exposed by hackers. And you've probably heard about some of these big hacks that have happened on Target and Equifax and eBay, and LinkedIn got hacked a couple of years ago. And all of these systems, somebody broke in, downloaded the database of all of the systems, and then what they do is they take all those passwords and user IDs and email addresses, social security numbers and addresses and everything else that they can get out of these systems, and they sell it on the dark web. And all of this is available on the dark web. There's a website, and again, there's a link in the resources page called haveibeenpwned.com, and it's PWNED, I think. And you can go to haveibeenpwned.com. You can put in your email address, and it'll say, yeah, your email address and password were exposed in 13 different breaches. So your data is out there, your passwords are out there, and you're exposed. So how long does it take for someone to physically break your password? This is called brute forcing. So they can, there are bots that will sit there and just try and try and try and try to get into your systems. This is what happened with my mother's email account last year. We had a random password. It was relatively secure. And somebody from Nigeria managed to get into her email account, changed the password, sent out an email to all of her friends, including her son, me, and said, hey, I'm stuck. I need money. Please send me an Apple gift card or whatever, whatever nonsense it was that they sent out. So you can sort of see by this chart that 6-character, 7 and 8-character passwords are not good enough anymore. It can just take minutes to hack your password. Most of the passwords that I have are in the 12 to 16 character range. I use a random password generator, which I'll talk about in a second. And because my Apple ID is tied to my Mac, my iPhone, my iPad, it's got my credit card information, it's got all kinds of stuff in there that if somebody were to compromise my Apple account, they would have pretty much the keys to my kingdom. And so I use a 24-character password on my Apple account because I don't ever want anybody to break in. It's a pain in the butt to type in, but that is worth it to me because I know that people can't get in. So if you think, okay, well, I use random character passwords, but it's only 8 characters long, it's like you will get hacked. Sorry. So how do you protect yourself against passwords? Because passwords are kind of the weakest link to get into most of your system, your banks, your credit cards, your devices, your systems, your email, your website, your computer, on and on and on. And my strong recommendation is to always use a password manager. There are several of them out there. I've used LastPass for several years. They actually got hacked. However, their system, all of the data is encrypted. So when I upload my passwords or whatever data they have, it's all encrypted. So even if I call them and say, hey, I forgot my password, can you get me my data back? And they're like, nope, can't get to it because it's all encrypted and we don't even have access to it. So the hack really didn't get the hackers anything, but it's just, again, they're trying to break in. But 1Password is another system that I use. I have one client that uses 1Password. Both 1Password and LastPass allow you to create secure passwords. You can generate random passwords. It will remember them. And then if you need to share login credentials with somebody, you can share that with somebody else. without exposing the actual password itself. So these are both really good tools. Bitwarden is another tool. There's a bunch of them available out there, but please, please, please use a password manager. And again, there's links on that resources page. The
Hey,
second
Tom,
thing that, yo,
ask a
hey,
question.
Steve.
Yeah,
Yeah.
hey. So I use LastPass, but
Uh-huh.
how often should you change the master password to get you into LastPass? Because I've had the same one for a year or so.
Yeah. That's a great question. And yes, I would highly recommend that you at least change it once a year.
Okay.
You know, it's kind of like, okay, I got to change the batteries in my smoke detector, or maybe I'll go change my master password. Um, because what will happen on LastPass is then that will re-encrypt the entire database so that even if somebody managed to steal it like they did a couple of years ago, changing the master password is going to re-encrypt it so that then it's impenetrable almost. So yeah, great question. I would just put it on the calendar, January 1st, every year, change the password or whatever schedule it is that makes sense.
Yeah, I haven't done that because I had a message from them saying that they take your master password and as long as it's, I don't know, 12 or 14 characters long, they add like another 26 characters on the end randomly or something. So that what you access LastPass with changes every time you access it.
That
That's
could be.
why I've been less worried about changing it. Just thought I'd
Yeah.
ask you on that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, and yeah, no, that's a great question. And thank you for that, Steve. And kind of my next point here is setting up two-factor authentication. So if you've got a combination of a strong password, which it sounds like you do, and two-factor authentication, then the 2FA is really going to protect you. So two-factor authentication, if you're not familiar with it, most of us are, but you put in your user ID and your password and it says, okay, great, I'm going to send you a text message with a 6-character or 8-character number. And you have to type that in. So it's a second authentication factor that even if a hacker was able to guess your password or brute force your password, they can't get in without that second factor. They can't get in with the text message without the text message or the email. So always, always, always use two-factor authentication, and you can. There's a variety of tools that you can use. For the most part, I use an authenticator app. There's a Google Authenticator that you can download. LastPass has its own authenticator tool. So there's a bunch of authenticator tools that generate a random number every 30 seconds so that even if somebody happens to get your password, it's going to be a lot harder to get in. There's a hardware key that you can buy on Amazon. They're about $50. It's called a YubiKey. Plugs into your USB port, and it basically generates a random number, that little gold Y on it. So when the system asks for your second factor, you just click the Y with your finger, and it sends the authentication um, uh, key through the hardware device. If you have an iPhone or a Android smart device, they also work with those. Obviously, you don't have a USB port, but it will work through Bluetooth. So you just hold the YubiKey up to your phone, and it will let you in as well. More lately, I'm starting to see this more and more. And I don't want to run out of time here, but we can demonstrate it in a little bit if you want to. But a lot of systems are now asking for pass keys. And a pass key is a special type of second factor, and it can actually be the first login factor that is tied to your device, like your computer. And it's a long random key that gets generated that's tied to the specific system. Google is starting to ask for the pass keys now, and Apple works really well with pass keys because it's saved in your keychain. And so it will work on any of your devices. Of course, the downside is if somebody hacks your Apple account, then they have access to your passkeys. So that's why you want to keep it super secure. Windows machines do not work as well with passkeys. It tends to be tied to the PC. And if you go to your laptop or your Chromebook or something else, it isn't necessarily going to travel across devices. But I think that passkeys are going to be sort of the way that people or that systems are going to start asking for authentication rather than using, what's your email address and your password, which can easily be hacked. Okay, so switching gears, you should feel naked and afraid. As I said, your data is out there through all of the breaches that have happened on Target and LinkedIn and all the other systems. Equifax was a big breach a few years ago. So your data is on the dark web and it's being sold by data brokers. These are legitimate companies that are actually selling your data. So there's a couple things that you can do. Number one is go to donotcall.gov. It's a US government website where you can register your home phone, your cell phones, whatever phones you have, and register the devices with them and say, I want to be taken off the call list, so that in theory, companies are not supposed to cold call you or spam call you. Of course, the bad guys don't play by the rules, so they don't care. But in theory, it should cut down over time the spam calls that you get because you're on the do not call list. There are data broker removal services that are out there, and I've got links to them on the resources page, but it's basically you can tell them, this is my name, my email, my social, my wife, my kids, whoever, and I want this stuff removed from the data broker sites. And because you're getting targeted, you get targeted mail, you know, the mail I get, they know I'm over 60 years old, so I'm a senior, and so I get a lot of that kind of mail. And so the data broker services are selling that to people that want to target specific demographics. And so you can tell them to remove your data from those systems so you don't get the junk mail and all that kind of stuff. It's not really a security thing, but it's just taking yourself out of the systems so that you're less likely to be targeted by advertisers or even people that are trying to do bad things to you. Okay, a couple more slides. So disaster preparedness. So we sort of as business owners, we should be thinking about disaster preparedness. That's a whole different topic for another day, but it's making sure that we have our systems that have backups. We have our servers are backed up, our systems are backed up, so that if somebody manages to hack into something or a server catches fire and, goes kablooey, we want to make sure that we can get all that stuff back. I've heard of companies that somebody breaks in, Jimmy's the front door, comes in, steals all their computers. They have all the backups to all their computers on an external hard drive that's sitting right next to the server. They steal that, and now you got nothing. So you want to make sure that all of your systems are being backed up offline into the cloud, into someplace that isn't on the facility. Your building burns down, you're screwed. So there are all kinds of backup services, and I hadn't even really thought about this for my own computer. I work out of my house, so I haven't really paid a whole lot of attention to that until recently. A good friend of mine is a photographer, and he's been a photographer for 1,000 years. And he went to the grocery store, came back in 20 minutes. Somebody had popped a window, took his computer, took his external hard drive, took, basically all of the technology, and he didn't have any backups. And so he lost something like 20,000 photographs that he had taken over the decades and had nothing. So always make sure that you have your systems backed up into the cloud, offline, out of your physical location so that you can get that back. And again, there's a resource, a link on the resource page that allows you to back up. My Mac, it supposedly backs up to iCloud, but in doing some research, it doesn't back everything up. And I have an external hard drive on my Mac that the Mac, I forgot what the system is, what they call it, but it doesn't back up external hard drives. So I set up a tool that's remote data backups, rdbu.com, and it backs everything up into the cloud. And this actually saved my bacon a few years ago. My laptop, one day I went to boot up my laptop, which I had everything on, and the system board had died. It was dead. It had worked the night before. Today it was completely dead. So I had to send it into HP to get it repaired. And HP, the first thing that they do is they reformat the hard drive. They don't care. They are not going to leave your hard drive as it is. So fortunately, I had the backup, and so when I got the laptop back, I just sucked it all back down from the backup system, and was able to get back to work again. Yeah, so to your Time Machine, thanks for the question there. Yeah, Time Machine backs up your system. It does not necessarily back up your data. So that was my point, is that, and especially if you have an external hard drive, like I've got an external solid state 1 terabyte hard drive, Time Machine does not back any of that stuff up. So you need to have a backup system. And I also heard people, well, I have Dropbox. I put everything in Dropbox. Well, that's not a backup system. That's a place to put things. But if you click a bad link or you get ransomware and it locks up your computer so that unless you pay them $10 million in Bitcoin or whatever the number is, you can't get into your Dropbox account, or if your Dropbox account gets hacked, you could lose all that stuff. So the remote data backup company, they actually have a tool that will do what they call a bare metal backup into the cloud, so that if you happen to have a ransomware attack, you boot off of a thumb drive and you can restore your hard drive back to the way it was before you got stuck by the ransomware. So check it out. Talk to the guy Dan, and he can help you figure out what's the best way to do that. Another question. Yeah, so she's asking, can you name the backup system? So the company is called Remote Data Backup. There's a link on my website on the resources page. So it'll take you right to a form. You can fill it out and you'll get a call from the president, Dan, and he can walk you through the resources. There aren't a lot of tools out there that have this type of a service, but I really, really recommend that you make sure that you have good backups on your systems. Okay, so moving into WordPress. I've been doing WordPress development and work, gosh, for probably at least a decade. It's a fantastic platform. You can build pretty much any kind of website you want. The problem with WordPress is it's got a lot of holes that the bad guys can crawl through. And like I said, statistically, 50% of you probably have a WordPress website. Chamber uses WordPress. I built their website in 2017. Pretty sure the Tri-Valley Nonprofit Alliance is WordPress. Partners for Change, Tri-Valley is WordPress because I built that one. So a lot of you have a WordPress website. And I was shocked at how often and how many times websites are getting probed. It's they are beating on the door 24/7 to come in. And when I started looking at the logs of what people are doing and how they're probing, and it's just it's constant. It's all day long, every day, 7 days a week, 24/7, and they are trying to get in. I've unhacked probably 36 websites, somewhere in there. And when they get in, and a lot of times they do, um, it's not a matter of if they get in, it's when they get in. They do a lot of damage. I worked with one client a few years ago that she contacted me because their website had been hacked. This was with a college. And I said, okay, well, let's see what you got and see if you've got um, backups of your website. And number two, what's salvageable on the web server itself. It turned out she didn't have any backups. Most of the web platforms, GoDaddy, Network Solutions, HostGator, Bluehost, all of these guys, most of them do not provide nightly backups. So you need to have, number one, a backup of your website and make sure it gets backed up off site so that if your site gets hacked, then you can get it back. But this college, they had been hacked. I looked at their server. The hackers deleted everything, including the database, so there was nothing. They had deleted it all, put their own junk in there, and so there was nothing left. She didn't have a backup, and so we basically had to start all over again with a brand new website because there was nothing left. So make sure you get a backup, um, and make sure you work with somebody who can close all the holes. I've seen so many times where I mean, I can take a look at a website pretty quickly and go, yep, here's a hole. Yep, here's a hole. Yep, here's where all your user IDs are being exposed. And if I have your user ID and your login ID to your website, if I were a hacker, which I'm not, it's easy to brute force that and get into your website, and then I can do anything I want. I can install malware. I can steal your user information. I can, if you process credit cards, it's possible I could steal credit cards. It's a huge liability for your company, not only because the hack is public, everybody sees it. It costs a lot of money to restore it and get it back online again. And it could cost you customers because your customers' data is possibly at risk there, and you don't want the liability of your customers' data of getting compromised and stolen. So I can't emphasize that enough. All right, that was kind of what I had, and um, let's see. So Morris, you were the brave person who stepped forward with your website. Terry, I'm not gonna use your website as an example here because I built it and I secured it, so there are no holes. Uh, but
Oh, good, you just
Morris,
answered the question I was typing.
uh,
And what about, you just answered the question I was typing for those of us that you built our website. Give me a second, assume it's safe. But is it also being backed up, or is that something that we need to do at a local level?
absolutely, I back it up. So all of my clients that I've worked with, the number one thing that I do is I harden a website against the bad guys. And number two, I make sure that whatever systems we use, and the hosting that I use for you, the hosting that I use for Livermore Valley Chamber of Commerce and a bunch of other people, they provide nightly backups and on-demand backups. So even if I'm going to go in and make a change on the website, I go click the button and say, back that thing up before I make any changes, in case the changes I make puke and cause the system to go sideways. I want to be able to get that back. So yes, absolutely, Terry. Your website is
Great,
being
thank
backed
you.
up. No question there. So Morris, so I'm going to stop sharing here. And I'm going to switch gears. And we just have a couple of minutes here. So I'll make this quick. Okay. So I'm going to move that over there. I'm going to reshare my screen. Share. Okay. So hopefully you can see Morris's website. It looks like a very nice jewelry website. And so the first thing, if I were a hacker, I'm going to look at the page source to see if this is actually a WordPress website. Which if I look at the source, I can see this WP content in here. So I know that this is a WordPress website. So this might be a good target for me if I were a hacker. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go look and see if I can get to the login screen. And if I can get to the login screen, then I can probably create a bot that will sit there and beat on the website. So here's the login screen. This also exposes your web host, Ionos. I've had some experience with that hosting company, not a fan, but if there are security issues around your hosting company, then that may be something that I might want to target. I've unhacked a lot of websites on GoDaddy, and I don't want to bash companies here, but I've had at least a couple of clients that had multiple websites on GoDaddy, and the way GoDaddy hosts their websites, if one site gets hacked, the hackers, there's a way that they can traverse the tree and they can hack all of your sites. And I've had at least 2 clients that's happened. It's like all of them went down at the same time. Okay, so yes, your login page is available. So that means that I can sit here and I can write a bot that will sit there and try to break into your website. One good thing I do see is you've got reCAPTCHA turned on here. That's going to slow me down a little bit as a hacker. I don't know what version you're using, but you should be using version 3, which is the latest version of reCAPTCHA. So that's a good thing. So I do see that. So I'm going to look at something else here. And I'm going to type this in. And you probably can't see this very well, but I typed in this command and I get back this XML-RPC server accepts posts, which doesn't mean anything, but what that means to me, if I were a hacker, is that XML-RPC is open. And that means that most WordPress websites have XML-RPC enabled. It's a legacy system that allowed tools like in the old days, you could use your iPad to create blog posts through the WordPress application. And the problem with XML-RPC is that I can use XML-RPC to beat on your website. I can send 100 login requests and passwords at a time. So I can literally throw thousands of login requests at a time. Most security tools don't block XML-RPC. And so this means that I can sit there and just beat on your website until I break in. So those are a couple of things that I see. Let's see. I'm going to pause my sharing because I don't want to expose some stuff. Let's see. How do I, here we go. So I'm paused. So I'm going to type in another command and see if I can get your login ID. Oops.
So I just want to add something for those of you who want to stay for just a few minutes past 1 o'clock. That's awesome. We will be posting this on our website and on YouTube. So if you're not able to stay, then certainly you can find this video on our website or YouTube. But I'm sorry, we did get started a few minutes late. So if you'd like to hang in there, great.
Yep, and I'm just about done too, so I'll wrap it up here in just a second. So Morris, so the command that I ran exposed 2 user IDs on your website. I'm not going to say what they are, but I can see you have a user ID and there's another user ID. And again, if I were a hacker, I can use XML-RPC or I can type in whatever your user ID is here. And now all I have is a second factor, your password, that I can sit there and I could, in theory, break into your website fairly easily. So just a little caution there. So I'm going to look at one other thing and then I'm going to call it a day here. So I'm going to put in your website into this website security headers, and I'm going to hide the results because I don't want your website to be exposed publicly here in the Hall of Shame, because we don't want to do that. So when I scan it, here we go. This is real typical. We get an F grade. So there's a bunch of stuff, technical stuff in here that is not set up correctly on your website. And so this is also exposing you because hackers could possibly get in. So just as an example, I'll put in the Partners for Change website, and you get an A. Oops, I need to fix your content security policy. But so you've got all these other things, the HSTS permissions, the X-frames, and so forth. So so Terry, your site's in good shape here. So I'm going to stop share. And Morris, thank you for being the guinea pig there. I appreciate it. It's appreciate you stepping up. So we are at 1 o'clock. So if anybody has any quick questions, I'm happy to take them and go from there.
Any questions?
Tom, I think there was a question in the chat from Carol over at Tri-Valley Nonprofit Alliance. I don't know if she's still on the call.
Let me find the
No,
chat window.
I don't see it. Does the Time Machine Mac back up everything?
Oh, okay. Yeah, I answered her question.
Oh, okay.
So,
I'm sorry. I missed that.
yeah.
Okay.
I already covered that. So yeah, the short answer is Time Machine does not back everything up. I was surprised by that. So that's why I have a backup tool on my Macintosh to really back everything up.
Okay. Any other questions?
This is a great presentation, Tom. Thanks.
Yeah.
my pleasure.
It was awesome. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you
Yeah.
very much.
Yeah, my pleasure. And like I said, if anybody's got any questions or you think, you wake up at 2 o'clock in the morning, it's like, oh God, what did Tom say? So
We'll call you.
yeah, definitely. You can give me a call. There's a link on the resource page that you can just schedule the time on my calendar. I'm happy to chat. Love meeting new people. So, and
Thank you for doing this presentation. It was awesome. And thank you for always looking out for us. You've been there for us for a long time.
a long time.
But yeah, a long time. So as a reminder, again, we will be posting this on our website and on YouTube. So be sure to check it out there in the coming days and be on the lookout for more educational presentations this year. We're working on more, so stay tuned for that. Thank you all for coming.
Thank you. Bye now.